This instructional video will describe in detail basic bandsaw adjustments for the Wellsaw 1316S automatic bandsaw. Operation of swivel feature for miter cutting. The angle of the cut can be adjusted from 0 to 60 degrees. The angle is indicated by a pointer at the back of the chip pan and a large scale at the edge of the tip-off table. The cutting head is locked into position by means of a control rod and a locking handle located underneath the tip-off table. To adjust the angle of the cut, loosen the angle locking handle and move the cutting head to the new desired angle, and then retighten the locking handle. The locking handle requires very little pressure to hold the head in place and should not be over-tightened. Guide arm adjustment. Always make certain the area under both guide arms is clear of obstructions, including the tip-off table. The left guide arm is considered stationary and should not be moved. The right guide arm is adjusted to the width of the workpiece, with the minimum width being the edge of the tip-off table. Set the right guide arm with the workpiece clamped in the saw vise. For maximum safety, and for the support of the saw blade while cutting, set the guide arm about an inch from the saw vise jaw, or the edge of the tip-off table, whichever is the wider of the two. To move the right guide arm, loosen the hand wheel above the guide arm, releasing the clamp. Slide the guide arm to its new position and then retighten the hand wheel. Cutting head height limit collar adjustment. The cutting head height limit collar is used to adjust the height at which the cutting head will automatically stop when rising. Adjust the limit collar to decrease cycle times and increase efficiency. Lower the cutting head so that the saw blade is an inch or two above the workpiece to be cut, allowing clearance between the material and the saw blade during the automatic bar feed cycles. To adjust the limit collar, loosen slightly by hand and slide the collar up or down the post to its new position, actuating the limit switch, and then retighten. Clamp force adjustment. The clamping pressure for the saw vise and the bar feed vise can be adjusted to accommodate lighter or less dense materials at the incoming air regulator located next to the main electrical cabinet. The minimum air pressure required for the machine operation is about 60 psi. To adjust, release the locking sleeve on the adjusting knob, then set the desired clamping pressure by turning the adjusting control left or right to increase or decrease clamping force. Clamping cylinder close speed. The saw vise and the bar feed vise air cylinders both have adjustable flow controls for fine adjustment of vise clamping and unclamping speeds. Use a flat screwdriver to make adjustments at the cylinders. Cutting force adjustment. The cutting force metering valve adjustment is located near the top of the stationary guide arm. This sets the cutting force applied to the workpiece by the saw blade during the saw cut. To adjust, turn the knurled thumb wheel at the bottom of the metering valve left or right to increase or decrease cutting force. To maintain a more consistent cutting force throughout the entire cut, an air over oil hydraulic system provides supplemental cutting force pressure to the cutting head. For sawing basic materials, the air pressure on the regulator should be set between 5 and 10 psi. For larger, solid, or tougher materials, the air pressure can be increased to a maximum of 20 psi. The supplemental cutting force air pressure regulator is located between the main incoming air regulator and the main electrical cabinet. To adjust, release the locking sleeve on the adjusting knob, then set the desired pressure by turning the adjusting control left or right to increase or decrease supplemental cutting force. Coolant valve adjustment. Coolant lubricates the blade against wear, absorbs most of the cutting heat, and washes chips away from the blade gullets while cutting. The coolant pump normally runs whenever the saw blade is running. There are 2 coolant valves on the bandsaw, one for each blade guide, located near the top of the left guide arm. With the saw blade running, adjust each coolant valve to flood and coat the blade completely, but not excessively. Cutting head approach and feed control valve. The cutting head approach and feed control valve is adjusted on the control panel to set the maximum feed rate of the cutting head while descending, whether cutting or not. The moment the saw blade contacts the workpiece, the cutting force metering system will take over, decreasing the cutting head descent rate to achieve the cutting force setting on the metering valve. If the cutting force pressure cannot be achieved, the cutting head will descend through the cut at the cutting head approach and feed control valve setting. To adjust the cutting head approach and feed control valve, close the valve completely by turning clockwise. Start the cutting head down and then open the valve to feed the saw blade into the workpiece slowly. Saw blade change. Always wear gloves and eye protection when handling saw blades. With the saw blade and the wheels completely stopped, open the wheel doors and the blade guards. Push the blade brush idle arm away from the belt to release the belt tension, and then remove the belt. On both blade guides, turn the black knurled knob counterclockwise until they stop. This opens the carbides. Release blade tension by pushing in on the T-handle while turning the handle counterclockwise at least 6 turns. Continue this process until enough blade tension has been released to remove the saw blade from the bandsaw. Raise the cutting head far enough for the bottom of the saw blade to clear the top of the saw vices. Remove the old saw blade. Place the new saw blade around the wheels and then into the blade guides. Be sure that the saw blade teeth are pointing away from the flange of the wheel and in the direction that the blade will travel. Apply blade tension by pulling out on the T-handle while turning the handle clockwise. Check to be sure that the saw blade is properly positioned as blade tension increases and the blade slack decreases. When the blade is properly tensioned, the T-handle will come to a hard stop. Do not force the T-handle beyond this point. Close the carbides by turning the knobs on the blade guides fully clockwise. Install the blade brush belt and close the guards and the wheel doors. Jog the saw blade for a few minutes and then recheck blade position.